Each summer, in the quiet hills of Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, something extraordinary happens. Over 20,000 people gather from around the world, not for a concert, not for a tech conference, but for Pennsic War, the world's largest medieval festival. Held on the grounds of Cooper's Lake Campground, this epic two-week event transforms modern-day life into a living, breathing medieval kingdom, complete with armored battles, royal courts, and candlelit feasts. Now in its 52nd year, Pennsic is the crown jewel of the Society for Creative Anachronism, a global organization dedicated to researching and reenacting the Middle Ages. Participants don handcrafted armor, speak in period dialects, and live as lords, ladies, artisans, and warriors. It's not cosplay, it's time travel.
My wife and I were visiting Topkapı. We were standing in the second courtyard, and we heard boom, boom, boom, drums, boom, boom, boom, and through the gate comes the Mehter playing Jedin Dede. I'm like, oh my gosh, Pennsic needs this.
Vakti sururu sefa! Mehter başı! Hey hey!
Almost 30 years ago, we started thinking about this. How can we do this? It seems impossible. And the next year, we started Mehter. And in the year between, I put out announcements on the internet. We're starting this. Who wants to join?
I found the group on Facebook and just thought it looked like fun. I wanted to have fun. I knew nothing, and my costume, I tried, but it was not right. But I was still welcomed into this group and became a part of them, and I was hooked, and I wanted to learn more because it's fascinating.
I started with the band after I saw the first performance, the very first time they ever marched. I remember where I was standing in the field when I saw them, and it was spectacular. Here was this strutting group of people playing this music at the same time, really carrying off the uniform and the style, and they looked powerful. They looked magnificent. They said, well, what would you like to play? And I'm a drummer. In other bands, I played the Irish frame drum. Osman said, how about the nakara? And I said, what's a nakara? And he showed me this beautiful pair of copper drums. And I fell in love. I just fell in love with them.
And I told my wife at the time, I'm just like, I think I'm going to be playing trumpet at Pennsic this year. And she's like, what? I haven't even heard you play trumpet before. I'm just like, well, you know, I've always kind of wanted to do it, so I'm going to do this. And that's how that happened.
Our Mehter Basha is one of my music teachers. I've known him for several years. He started the Janissary effort 25 or 30 years ago. One of my campmates actually was in that first iteration, and so through her I knew about it. And one of the things I really like doing in the SCA and Pennsic is not just having fun, although this is a blast, but doing things that are real recreation of something period. And Ted offered a chance to do something where we're really researching and we're really trying to do our best to recreate something that existed, and that's a big deal for me.
We grow up, we're not expected to speak until spoken to. And we're not expected to be loud. And I discovered that when I was asked to join the Mehter, can I play the cymbals? So then, sure. So there I am, Zili Basha.
I showed up Pennsic 48 hearing that, like, oh, they play music, and I was like, can I do something? They're like, you play trumpet? And I'm like, I can learn. And they sat me down, and I was just like, teach me the fingerings, let me know. And so they sat down, told me which note was which, taught me the fingerings. I was like, play it for me one time, and within 2-3 hours, I was playing Teddy the Den for the first time, and just started marching with them. We had to throw uniform together real quick because I didn't know if I was going to do it that year.
We base our Mehter on the golden age of the Ottoman Empire, the 16th century, the age of Kanuni Suleiman, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. This was a core value of the Ottoman Empire. They included all races, all genders, all religions. This came to us naturally, and people just came, and soon I looked around and I saw people from Asia, black people, women, men, all genders, and all ages, senior citizens, young people, but they all want to do it. That's all I want. I want you to do it. I want you to love it. So everyone is welcome. And we suddenly had that same diversity that was authentic to the Ottoman Empire.
The Janissary band is so welcoming and inclusive of all of our members. We have people of all ethnic backgrounds, people from all over the United States, from Canada, from New Zealand. We have people who are gender diverse, who are just every person is welcomed and brought in as our family. When we see each other walking down the street, it's instant hugs and recognition.
When we first saw each other here, it was, hello, I haven't seen you in months. It's so great to see you. We share Zoom meetings, we share Facebook meetings, we share ways to communicate so that we don't lose that connection.
I've been attracted historically to empires, to governments that have invited and made it possible for people of different sorts, different backgrounds, especially as empires spread and find themselves governing Christians, Jews, pagans. Some of them find a way to accommodate those differences. And the Ottoman Empire, it seemed to me, was a parade example of this capacity. So that attracted me very much as a Jew.
I have a slightly different point of view. My family is Israeli, I'm Jewish, and as you know, the Ottoman Empire included the Holy Land. It included where my family lives today. It included a large part of Europe, including where parts of my family also used to live. So while, as far as I know, none of us were Janissaries, the Ottoman history is very much also Jewish history. America is a very young country. What we consider old in the United States is about 50 years, but in the Middle East, Turkey and the Holy Land, history is tens of thousands of years, many, many thousands. So it's kind of like having a dual vision. Oh yes, this is very old, but also this is part of my people's recent history. When Jews were expelled from Spain, the Sultan famously said that Spain is throwing her jewels on the floor and I shall collect them. So there is a national debt to the Ottoman Empire that saved so many of us from extinction. And one thing I would like to research more is the history of the Jews within the Ottoman Empire. Certain clothing at certain times was restricted for non-Muslims, but sometimes those restrictions were lifted for your safety. So yes, it wasn't maybe quite as democratic as we would like to imagine, but certainly kinder to minorities, including the Jewish people, than others. I would like to continue that research. I would like to do more about that. So yeah. Thank you, Turkey.
It's fantastic. I have been fascinated by the combination of cultures, languages, different people coexisting in a place without war. for a long time. And Istanbul and the Ottoman Empire is one of those places where it integrates lots of people. It brings them in and provides a place to make beautiful art and beautiful music and beautiful culture across all of those.
Well, my first thoughts are being able to enter a phase of history which is of enormous interest to me, of course, in the context of contemporary history. You know, what happened to the Ottoman Empire? How did that impact the changes in the whole region? So then when I'm given the opportunity to visit the era of Suleiman Magnificent and be proud, to be glorious, to join this empire which for a time, for centuries, controlled probably even more territory than the Roman empires of old. And to be made a valued member of that, to be someone who went with the Sultan, with the armed forces, to enlarge this project, and to be very noisy and aggressive about it. Now you see us coming. Get ready.
It's very easy working with Osman. He is our soul. He keeps us motivated. I want to make sure that for every practice I'm a little early so I don't miss any part of his pep talks, because that's what keeps me going.
I became attracted to the Ottoman lifestyle largely because we'd watched 400 odd hours of Magnificent Century during our COVID lockdown, and that was really nice. Looking at the architecture and so forth and the lifestyle, I thought that's pretty cool. So I thought, well, why not change my way of dress and persona to suit that?
And I feel that this is an outlet for my creativity. There's that word again. Creative anachronism, the creativity that I don't necessarily have at work. I'm allowed to play music that I would not play with work. I am allowed to dress in beautiful clothing. I'm allowed to meet new people. I'm allowed to speak different languages. And all of these things are permitted and encouraged here. And so I make time for it.
The Ottoman Empire spread across so many cultures and so many regions. And unlike other empires, it didn't try to shut that down. It accepted them and made it a part of the strength of the empire. And I think we reflect that with our Mehter. Our members' diversity is what gives us strength, because everyone has something to bring to us.
I'm from a little town just north of Christchurch in the South Island of New Zealand. My grandfather was Lachlan Bain. He was a trooper at that stage and later became a lieutenant in the Canterbury Mounted Rifles. They fought with the Anzac forces at Gallipoli.
I take a pause in my life. I do everything I can so that there are 2 weeks that are always mine. First 2 weeks of August are always mine. I also have included my children. So they're here too. If I had to separate myself from that responsibility, it would be very difficult. It's easier to separate from work than it is from them. I can't bring work here, but I can bring my children here.
We have evolved in terms of our uniforms and what we're wearing to be more accurate. When Osman started this Mehter group, he was also looking at the Mehter from later period, and a lot of our costume standards reflected that. Now we are looking more at the manuscripts from the time of Suleiman so we can more accurately portray what the Mehter would have looked like. So our costuming is much more accurate, and also our marching is more accurate. We're trying to be more precise, and we're trying to have the appropriate Janissary attitude and, motions as we march to kind of bring that realism to the group.
biggest change was we've updated the standards, and that was something I did for this last year. I wrote authenticity standards modeled off of those used for professional living history groups, where we have a good, better, best standard. So there's a spectrum, and as people upgrade their kit, they can be moving up that spectrum and kind of getting better and better. And eventually we'll have like a professional level that's all at best standard, and our good standard still accommodates Pennsic weather. It's over 90 degrees and 90% humidity. That's a lot to deal with. So that was the biggest change, is our previous uniform standard was based on Levny paintings from the 18th century, and now we're moved to 16th century. We try to diversify the colors, bring the caftans back to 16th century, and ensure that we're matching those portraits as best we can. So they weren't all my work. Many people are making their own, but I try to guide people through that process. So having the standards available, having patterns available. I've also taught online Zoom workshops so that we can reach members who are all across the world, and then also made several in the last month. We made 16 more kaftan to dress folks out there this year. So those colors and everything are chosen based on finding the miniature portraits and the images in which I can identify Janissary, and even better, where I can identify Mehter. And so if I see those with instruments in the portraits or in the pictures, that's what I'm using to kind of identify. And we're trying to take a statistical average of what's actually available or what we're seeing in those images. So if it's a majority green, I'll be going through counting. There's 5 green and 4 red and 3 yellow, and trying to balance, and that's what we're moving toward. We're trying to balance so that our diversity in our clothing and the layers and the colors matches what we're seeing in miniature portraits from the 16th century.
I feel very proud because I made mine myself by hand. So Feya, of course, made many of them, which was an incredible work of scholarship. But I insisted on making my own. So I'm sitting there looking at the miniatures, the historical miniatures, and looking at the research that Feya and Osman gave to us. And I go to all the craft stores and I get all this fabric, and I'm making sure the colors match, and I'm asking people, do you think this looks good together? The color's good together. This is accurate, yes. And I sat there and I sewed every stitch of it by hand. It took me weeks, but it did not fall apart on the battlefield. It's very strong. And I'll be making another one for one of my brothers for next year. So
that hand finishing is so that there's no machine sewing seen on the exterior. Of course, this one is entirely handmade because this is mine. But that's kind of one of those ways that we make that happen. And then as far as being in uniform and being Janissary, for me, it's a transition because obviously I'm normally much more relaxed. I'm normally a woman, so I kind of have to get into that mindset of being the soldier and sort of step into that place. And getting into uniform helps with that, but it doesn't really happen until we hear the call.
Our Mehter needed better saruk, turbans. I have many friends in Istanbul from so much travel. And I said to one of them, my friend, I am looking for sarukça, turban maker. Do you know any? He knows everybody. He said, yes, I know two. He called one. He said, yes, I will teach you. He's in Üsküdar, Bektashi Dervish. We go, he spends a day with us, teaching us, showing me how to wind. Then he pulls it all off, tekrar, again, wind, pulls it off, tekrar, again, repeat, repeat, repeat, to get it right. Then he shows us, now this, now this. And then we come home, he writes to me, when are you coming back? I will teach you to make kavuk, the hats.
This was my first time making a bork, and what I do for a living is 3D modeling and design. So I looked at pictures of existing feather holders, spoon holders. I believe they're actually for holding spoons. And I had some measurements of someone who had an original one. And I designed it in 3D CAD, and this was 3D printed and painted, and I tried to reproduce a real one as closely as possible.
There is so little that's known. For instance, we're even trying to research the march that we do, the particular step that we do as part of the procession. and trying to find accurate information on what the actual Janissary march would have looked like is very difficult. So it's not even wrong facts. There are no facts. We're having to research every part of this to pull it all together, from the costumes to the music, to discovering the music, the instruments, and just bringing it all together. It's very much just a lost heritage at this point.
A lady from England, but she is an Ottoman scholar of food. She knows my interest. I said I want to find cemetery of Janissary. Now, it's very difficult because in 1826, to eliminate the Janissaries, the tombstones would have Janissary Keçe, Bork hat. 1826, they knocked them off. You don't know whose grave that is. She said, there are 2 cemeteries. I know where they are. So we're talking about this. And when I'm with Dervish, he pulls out a book, a brand new book. He said, you want this book? Janissary cemeteries. Oh, mashallah.
Well, I think particularly here in the U.S. and in our modern age, we diversify and we try to let everybody explore their interests and explore the things that they're really passionate about. And this is just one aspect of 16th century Turkish culture that I've had the opportunity to dive into. So for our Janissary band in particular, it's having that feeling of camaraderie and being united in creating something that also, like for me, has a deeper aspect from coming out of the research and coming out of, reading lots of text and looking at thousands of images and then bringing that into reality. So there's a big creative process there for me as well.
Being a part of the Janissary band has become very important to me. It's the big reason why I come to Pennsic every year. I'm very proud to be a part of this, and learning about Turkish history is just amazing. There's just so much. I'm also very much into Star Wars, and there's a lot of parallels between Turkish history and Star Wars. And I was very surprised to find that out. So it comes into my personal life too, because I do Star Wars stuff. I'm a member of a group called the Rebel Legion, and we do nonprofit appearances to help raise money for children in hospitals and do visits with children in hospitals. And we do it to make people happy and to try and make the world a better place.
Mehter is part of Janissary. They are the musicians to inspire the Janissary soldiers. So it's all part of the Janissary Ocak. So the Janissaries were instituted in the 14th century. They were slave soldiers. The sultan owned a Janissary, all Janissaries, and they were called the sons of the sultan. But Janissaries were not allowed to be Turkish or Muslim. When they were recruited, they all had to be Christians. They all had to be uncircumcised. They were recruited from the Balkan countries through a process called the Devshirme, where Janissary officials went from village to village, and they would pay money to a family, and they would take the sons, the oldest sons, from 8-year-old to 20 years old. In this process, at first, the families were frightened. They would hide the children. Eventually, they came to understand that as Janissaries, their sons would have better lives than if they stayed in the village. So they were happy to send them. They were sent back to Istanbul, but those that were accepted were then tested on their intelligence. Those that were most intelligent were sent to these schools or palace schools called Enderun. And there they were taught very well. They were trained to be the administrators of the Ottoman Empire, and they rose to the greatest ranks. The Grand Vizier was recruited through Devshirme and became the second most powerful man in the Ottoman Empire. Most Janissaries in Istanbul lived in barracks in the old palace of Beyazid. Again, that's Istanbul University. Why didn't they live in Topkapı Palace with the Sultan? Because they were the greatest soldiers in the world. Over time, the Janissaries became involved in politics in the Ottoman Empire. This threatened the Sultan, and in 1826, the Sultan heard that the Janissaries were going to riot because of the modernization and westernization of the Ottoman army. The Janissaries felt threatened. The Sultan decided to eliminate the Janissaries, and he had thousands of Janissaries killed in one night, and everything associated with the Janissaries was destroyed. This was cultural cleansing, to eliminate the memory of the Janissaries from the Ottoman Empire. So then, the history was gone, and through the 19th century, the army came to look like European armies. The marching band was like a European marching band. No Mehter. In the beginning of the 20th century, a decision was made to revive Mehter. But they didn't know what to base it on because it had been erased. They took what history they could find and they started again. New songs were written and uniforms were created based on paintings by a court painter in the 18th century. And that survives to today. Istanbul and Bursa, but they're not entirely historically correct. So we have to research the uniforms, the clothing of the middle of the 16th century. This is not easy. None of it survives. So we have to look at paintings in books like the Book of Suleiman. And whatever paintings have little picture of Mehter. What are they wearing? What are they playing? And we accumulate research like this. We talk to members of the Bektashi Sufi order because Bektashis cared for the Janissaries. So we do research there for more information. And we compile this. The Janissary March. It's only done by the Janissaries. This march comes from the Bektashi dervishes. To understand Janissary is to realize that Janissaries are Bektashi. It's not that Bektashi influenced Janissaries. No, Janissaries are Bektashi. And when they march, they are marching to a prayer. They take 3 steps and then turn to one side. And they're saying in those 3 steps, Kerim Allah. The next 3 steps turn to the other side. Rasim Allah. Beneficent God, generous God, gracious God. This is the march. This is the prayer. And the drums follow that march. Kerim Allah. Rasim Allah. And that is the march. It is a prayer. Here in the West, there simply isn't an understanding or appreciation for the Ottoman Empire as a whole. Some people who like history have heard the word Janissary. And some even know, oh, they were slave soldiers. But in America, where we had slaves in our history, they think of that kind of slavery. But slavery in the Ottoman Empire was not the same kind of what is called chattel slavery in America. Here, they had no more value than animals. There, they were valued for their ability and respected and feared. When a Janissary retired, he was released from his slavery and given an estate, a farm in Anatolia to retire. That's a good life. So they were not abused, they were valued. And the Sultan knew these are the best soldiers. These were the first professional soldiers in the world. The first professional army. The Mehter were the first military marching band in the world. The SCA has 24 kingdoms or more, just regional groups. But we're from all over, all of them. So we can't say, I'm from this kingdom. We're no one kingdom. We are the Ottomans. Like I said, 24 kingdoms. They all have to go in. It's confusing. And being out there on the field, it's like a real battle. Here's this kingdom, this kingdom, this kingdom. It's like military units moving around, coordinating. And then we walk down the middle. Last year, because of storms, because of the weather, they did not do it out in the field. They did it in a small building, and we had to march there. It was not as good. And then we got there, and we're left standing outside for a long time. I said to the princess we were leading, I said, we're not going to get in there. We're Ottomans. We're not going to stand here waiting for these Franks. I said, that's it, we're leaving. About face, turn around, we march away. This year, we had to follow another kingdom. So, we're watching them, and we have to march to follow them. But other kingdoms were getting in the way. So I went up to them and said, excuse me, but the Janissaries are coming through. They separate and part to give us room. We go in. It's not easy driving 50 people. It's leading a military unit. So I have a little bit of an attitude, an Ottoman attitude. My friends in Turkey say, you're more Turkish than I am. And I say, no. I don't romanticize it that way. I don't try to be Turkish. I just love the culture.
My persona is male, a boy from Mostar, from Bosnia. My parents, when I was a small boy, gave me in service to the Janissaries, and I was trained to be a musician. I was not very good at the fighting part.
Taken as blood tax after Balkan invasion. I wish I knew whether my parents thought it was a good thing or not, but I absolutely don't. This is really all Mehmet has known since he was 5 or 6 years old. And don't even remember what my name was before I was given Mehmet back those years. And so I grew up in the service of the Sultan, knowing I was going to have opportunity to be Janissary. Luckily enough for me, I have the ability to play, so I became part of the Mehter.
I was taken as a young child into Devshirme in my village in the Balkans. From there, I was sent to Topkapı to study at the Indirun with the other cadets. And I have been at Topkapı ever since. I did serve a little bit in Ankara, in the station out there, but I have been returned back to the palace to serve for the Sultan. My family, I don't remember them anymore. The Janissaries are my family.
In 1520, I was serving the King of Bohemia as what was called a man-at-arms, like a knight. Sultan Süleyman was marching into Hungary. The King of Bohemia was also the King of Hungary at that time. So he brought his army and all the Western armies to stop Süleyman. And they met at a place in southern Hungary called Mohacs. The armies prepared for battle. At first, the Bohemian army did very well. But eventually, the Sultan saw that they started to weaken, and he sent in his shock troops, storm troops, the Janissaries, and they crushed that army. In fact, King Louis was never found. He was wearing a suit of armor that was covered in gold. They never found his body. I was not killed. I was lucky, but I was a prisoner of the Ottomans now. The next day, Süleyman had 1,000 knights beheaded. He cut off their heads as a lesson. Oppose me and you will die. The rest of the prisoners, including me, were sent back to Istanbul, to the dungeons in Yedikule. I've been there, but I didn't go there then. Along the way, they learned that I studied music in Prague. And they said, "You are valuable. You are now a slave of the Sultan." They sent me to the barracks at Beyazıt Saray to teach music. And eventually they said, "You are Mehter. Learn our music." Okay. Life was very good. They make me Mehter. You are Janissary. They gave me the name Osman after the first Ottoman, and they named me Osman Turkoglu. I was good. So then they said, "Okay, now you will go. You will be Mehter Basha, Topkapı. You will teach music in the Enderun, and you will lead Mehter in Topkapı." Then I was promoted to Çorbacı Basha, colonel in the Janissaries, leading Mehter. So that's my little backstory for the SCA. Incidentally, I found that same story in history. Wow, this happened. These things happened.
It's the day. How do you feel?
Great. Ready to conquer.
it's time to go. So let's do this.
It's hot and fun.
It's so awesome. We're louder than everybody here, and it's going to be just fabulous.
As musicians, as a corps, I find them very impressive.
They are awesome. They are so impressive. I want to almost
Oh, it was really cool. This is my first Pennsic, and it was awesome that they were organized, and it was just a cool experience.
Because of the history of the Ottoman Empire, and particularly as it evolved into the Republic of Turkey, the loss of artifacts and the loss of knowledge has been the greatest thing that we've encountered. Because after the auspicious incident when the Janissaries were disbanded and their regalia was destroyed, it makes it very difficult to do research into the regalia that we should be carrying. And then when the Republic of Turkey started and there was a repression of Ottoman culture, a lot of knowledge was lost. So we're trying to discover that knowledge and bring it back.
I was surprised to learn about modern Turkish history that has, in a way, changed its own history, erased some of the knowledge about the Ottoman Empire and the the Janissaries. If you were to ask modern Turks, what do you know? How do you know it? Did you learn this in school? Did you learn this from a book? The answer would be no, we don't have this knowledge. We don't know much other than a few childhood stories.
This is a performance. When we're doing it, stay in character, be Janissary while we're doing this work, because people are always watching us, even if we're walking around the marketplace, or we're doing the march like we did today, or we're coming back after rehearsal. Stay in that character. Let people see it as a way of life rather than just putting on a funny hat and marching for 20 minutes. It's more than just putting on a costume and doing something for a little while. While we're here, we're representing a culture and an attitude, and figuring out how to put that on and keep it on, I think, is very important.
I feel very proud and very strong, and you know, I'm very glad to be. I am trying my best to portray an historically correct Janissary.
If there is a possibility of returning a gift to Turkey, to say, we've collected this information, this is your history, how can we give this back?
When I started with the band, I knew nothing about Turkish culture. And the more I know, the more I want to know and to learn. And it feels like a responsibility to be accurate and be thorough and to bring this back to the people of Turkey.
A lot of history has been lost in Turkey, and we're doing our best to find parts of that history that we want to offer back to the Turkish people, if they are interested in it as something that is their history, that maybe we can present in a way that will be meaningful to them. And I hope so.
So for us, this is a game. We're all educated people. And so our games have to have an element of education. All of our games are learning about something, making something, building something. That's how we have fun. And so I would say we're nerds. We like educated fun. And to have someone else like you recognize that this is a valuable kind of fun, that it might have interest to someone else, makes us feel good too. It makes us feel recognized. I understand that probably in Turkey, seeing Americans do this, that's weird, really weird. But the fact that you're the translator of our weird fun to the people of Turkey to say, not only do we have an interest in this culture, this history, but so much so that we want to recreate an element and do it. I think that's powerful.
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I was adopted at birth. The family that adopted me, as are many people in Pittsburgh, they were the coal miners and the steel mill workers. And I grew up in a family that embraced these cultural traditions of food and music. And I love this, and it helped give me identity. As I grew older, I continued to love all of these things, but I continued to search for who I really am. I would go to a family reunion, but I would know that these people were not my family. So I was always searching for who I am. Now we meet with the command of the Janissary band in Istanbul. And they ask us, will you share your research? Because you have better research than we do. Unbelievable. Yes, of course. I'll give you everything. Yes. In that meeting, they said to me, why do you do this? What made you want to do this? And I was a little confused. And I said, you do. You inspired me in Topkapı, in the palace. It was you. And we do it to copy you. And now here we are, consulting with you. So, in that way, we have gone back to our origins. But now they are asking us for their origins. This has been my vision. Now, you can't plan for this. But as I see them every year getting better and better, I know that someone is going to notice. And word will get back. My vision, my dream, was to perform, to walk through that gate, to march through that gate, the gate of peace at Topkapı Saray, into the second courtyard, just where I saw Mehter. Wow. It's a dream.
Hayatımız boyunca hep kim olduğumuzu ararız. Biliriz ki geçmişimizi iyi bilmezsek geleceğimizi de iyi inşa edemeyiz.
As the echoes of the last march fade, Ted is still searching for his own origin and now for the lost world of the Janissaries.
Benle tanışmadan 10 yıl önce bir kitap okumuştu. Osmanlı İmparatorluğu ile ilgili kitap okumuştu. Türk tarihine olan ilgisi ve bilgi birikimiydi benim ilk dikkatimi çeken. Çok da kalıp bir kitaptır o. Ama her şeyi 10 yıl önce okumuş olmasına rağmen her şeyi çok iyi hatırlıyordu. Topkapı Sarayı'na gitti. O kadar heyecanla döndü ki oradan. Bana ne kadar etkilendiğini anlattı. Ve ben orayı gezerken ben oraya aitim, böyle hissettim dedi. Hep ona sende bir Türk geni var derdim. Çünkü alışkanlıkları, düşünce yapısı, hayranlığı Türklere ve Türkiye hayranlığını başka türlü izah edemem. Türk vatandaşı olmak isterdi hep. Ve bunun için biz konsolosluğa müracaat ettik. Evraklar geldi. Tercüme edilmesi gerekiyor. Doldurduk, tercüme edilmesi gerekiyordu. Noter tasdikli olması gerekiyordu ve maalesef zamanı yetmedi buna. Ona neden Türk vatandaşı olmak istiyorsun diye sorduklarında ben bu kültürün hayranıyım ve bir parçası olmak istiyorum derdi. Yeni evliydik. Bir gün bana bildirdi ki Ayşe bir Türk bayrağı al, dışarı asalım dedi. Ben çok önemsemedim. Ben tamam alırım dedim ama ihmal ettim. Bir misafirimiz vardı bir gün. O bey de Amerikalı bir beydi. Bana dedi ki Ayşe bir dışarı çık dedi bana. Evden dışarı çık dedi. Çıktım. Kocaman bir Türk bayrağı gördüm dışarıda. Bill kendisi almış ve asmış. Ve Amerikan yasasına göre Amerikan bayrağının her zaman daha üstte olması gerekiyordu. Bill bu iki bayrağı yan yana ve eşit seviyede asmıştı. Çok etkilendim bundan. Bir de her yıl o bayrağı değiştirdi. Çünkü bayrak yaz boyu güneşten soluyordu. Yeni bayrak alıp asıyordu ve bunu hiç ihmal etmedi. Bana hep Laz inadı var sende derdi. Laz inadı var sende. Çünkü bazı konularda anlaşamazdık. Mesela bir gün evde kocaman bir paket geldi ve ne olduğunu bilmiyorum. Ay bu ne dedim ama çok büyük bir paketti. Hafif de bir paket. Ne olduğunu anlamadım. Ha dedi ben Osmanlı İmparatorluğu'nun haritasını buldum. Onu sipariş verdim. Bir açtım kocaman bir harita. Osmanlı İmparatorluğu haritası. Şaşırdım. Bunu dedi salona asalım. Dedim ki salondaki konsepte uymaz bu. Aşağıya asalım. Ofis var aşağıda. Ofiste dursun. Hayır hayır dedi bana. Osmanlı İmparatorluğu bizim hayatımızda çok önemli bir yeri var. Bunu buraya salona asalım. Ben dedim ki çok bu salonda olmaz. Bana sende Laz inadı var. Yine tuttu Laz inadın dedi. Ben bunu buraya asacağım. Dedim ki lütfen asma bunu buraya. Olmayacak ben bunu burada istemiyorum dedim. Ve daha sonra benim evde olmadığım bir gün bunu o istediği yere dediği yere astı. Aslında bana inatçıydı ama kendisi benden daha inatçıydı. Onu oraya astı ve ben onu şimdi indiremiyorum oradan. O salonda duruyor o Osmanlı İmparatorluğu. Keşke sağ olsa da her gün bana ki o zaman çok hoşuma gitmiyordu Laz inadı var sende demesi. Ama şimdi keşke her gün söylese. Ziyafet geleneği vardır Osmanlı kültüründe. Aynı o gördüğümüz şölenler gibi ziyafetler olurdu bizim evimizde. Ve ben o yönüyle de Osmanlı hanedanlarına benzetirdim. Bayramlarda benden önce, bütün Türk dostlarına, Müslüman dostlarına benden önce bayram mesajı gönderen bir insandı. Ramazan boyunca çalıştığı insanları yormazdı. Çünkü onların oruçlu olduğunu bilirdi. Onları iftara götürürdü. Evde iftar yemekleri yapardık. O oruç tutmazdı ama Oruç tutanları çağırır, iftar yemeği verirdik. Çok değer verirdi insanlara gerçekten. Kültüre, kültürel farklılıklara. Onu zenginlik olarak düşünürdü. Ve güzel olan yanlarını kendine de adapte etmek isterdi. Bill çok çalışkan bir insandı. 12-13 yaşlarında sadece paketleme elemanı diye başladığı Grand Union süpermarket zincirinde her yıl terfi alarak 19 yaşında manager oldu ve 29 yaşında da 100 yıllık bir tarihte görülmemiş bir başarı elde etti ve genel müdür yardımcısı oldu. Çok yardımsever bir insandı. Çok vicdanlı bir insandı. Türkiye bir dostunu kaybetti. Bir mehter takımı şuradan çıkıyor olsa, benden önce Bill koşar onların arasına girer, coşkuyla o maçlara eşlik ederdi. Bundan emin olabilirsiniz.
Bill was not born a Janissary, but if love, curiosity, and reverence could grant you a place among them, he would be among the finest. We are all, in one way or another, looking for who we really are, through music, through memory, through brotherhood. For Ted, the Janissaries are not gone. They are waking up through him. For Bill, they lived in books and friendship. This is for those still searching, for their history, their people, and themselves.